Hi, I'm Tom Guerra, and here are today's 3 questions. The first question is from Tom Semioli. Many of you might know Tom from being the driving force behind the website Know Your Bass Player, so it's no surprise that his question has to do with bass playing. His question is, unlike many guitarists who double up on the instrument, you phrase, choose notes, and render rhythms akin to a real bass player. On some of your album tracks, I have to check the credits to see which cuts are Kenny and which cuts are Tom. Discuss your approach to the instrument and the bass gear you use. In terms of my approach to the instrument, first of all, I appreciate the compliment. I mean, the big difference between Kenny and I is he's a real bass player, he's a virtuoso, and I'm kind of like a poser on the instrument. I did start out on the bass though, and I've always felt very, very strongly that the bass should not merely mimic the guitar parts, but sort of help drive the song along, help accent, work with the drums to really establishing the groove. So my approach is a simple approach. I try to use some melodic bass parts. I think obviously Paul McCartney is one of the greatest bass players of all time, who really did to the instrument what Jimi Hendrix did to the electric guitar. He really changed the approach, and he used his bass lines as really counter melodies in the song. So where possible, I like to do that. Always like funky bass lines as well, stuff by Larry Graham. And on the Mambo Sons song, I Love My Family, I tried to give kind of a real Sly and the Family Stone groove to the bass part on that. That's one of my better bass parts, I would say. In terms of the bass gear I use, very, very simple. I use an old Rickenbacker 4001. Don't really use that much in the studio. As much as I have a Fender P-Bass copy. It's a 50s P-Bass copy, or reissue, I should say, in blue paisley, blue floral, I think they call it. Has a great sound and bass, and I typically record that through a SansAmp, which Kenny turned me on to many years ago, as well as through an Ampeg bass amp, either a flip top that I own or an Ampeg tube head, another tube head that I have. So that's a great question. Thanks, Tom. Next question is from our great friend Binky. Binky says, how many solos in your catalog are first take wonders, and which is your favorite, one take or otherwise? That's a really good question. I would say the rockers we did with Mambo Sons, the song Play Some Rock and Roll, totally spontaneous solos. There's 2 of them in that, and I played it through a P90 equipped guitar. My Brian Moore guitar, actually, which I endorsed for a number of years. It's a great guitar, and I love the tone of that P90 tone. So check that out, Play Some Rock and Roll, and totally spontaneous and pretty much as I played it the first time. So Wonderful is another song by the Mambo Sons where I did work out the solos beforehand, so I knew what I was going to play. But that's another one to check out. In terms of my solo stuff, the song Get Off of My Groove, which is the first song off my first solo album, has one of my favorite guitar parts. It's an old Telecaster that I have, and it's just got a real snarly kind of telly sound. That was a first take. I kept it as is, and check that out as well. And then in terms of the new album, Sudden Signs of Grace, I did a lot of acoustic guitar playing on that album, and the 2 spontaneous solos on there are the title cut, Sudden Signs of Grace, as well as the song Lonely No More, which kind of has this really nice outro. Was able to play over the bass and over the drum line, really, so the guitar complemented what those instruments were doing. So that's that question. The last question is from Doug. He asks, who do you consider the greatest musician or musicians you've had the chance to work with? I don't like these type of questions because I feel like I'm going to leave everybody out or anybody out. But in reality, I've considered myself fortunate to play with all of the musicians I've been able to play with. And I think in their own right, they're great. The people that really stand out as the virtuosos on their instrument, I would say obviously Kenny Aronson on bass. The two keyboards I've been playing with for the past several years, Matt Zeiner on Hammond and piano, and Morgan Fisher on piano, are amazing, amazing musicians, way above my technical capabilities. And in terms of guitar players, a couple years back, I helped to mix a Ray Gomez song, and his guitar playing is otherworldly. So I hope that answers all the questions today. Thank you, and look forward to hearing more.